One of the strongest on-paper lineups bombed out of the major qualifier quite spectacularly. And no, I'm not even talking about Astralis. I'm thinking about Fnatic. Once a legendary organisation that was practically synonymous with Counter-Strike has long lost its former glory due to a string of questionable management decisions, underwhelming player performances, and most notably, the loss of its Swedish identity. After years, it seemed they managed to finally make a roster that might have a chance of doing some damage. A team full of talented AIM demons waiting to prove themselves. A honeymoon period waiting to happen just in time for the major. They just have to not f*** it up this time. Foreshadowing. The Blast TV Oster Major European Regional Qualifier began on the 14th of April 2025. This for all teams involved is of course the most important event of the year, and Fnatic were grinding for it. Just a month prior, on the 9th to the 11th of March, Fnatic played 10 best of 3s on HLTV. You would expect this grind to continue. However, just before the major qualifier, Fnatic didn't play a single official for 15 days. Strange that. Maybe there's more behind the scenes that we don't know about. Considering Fnatic's stacked roster, their results this year had been so unbelievably average. All they had achieved was getting to a grand final in a single CCT event, and that's it. Then, something shocking is revealed. 3 days before the major qualifier, we all find out that Borup is replacing Crims for the EU MRQ. Why now? Why not 3 weeks ago? Why not get Borup involved in playing officials and getting him ready for Fnatic's most important event of the year? Fnatic hasn't been a championship winning team for a really long time now. So what happened? Do you ever sit there and daydream about the golden era of CSGO? The great iconic memories? For me it's easy. The Virtus Plow, Happy's Ace versus TSM, NIP's 87-0, and of course the Swedish era of dominance. I'm talking about NIP and Fnatic. Fnatic won the first ever CSGO major, DreamHack Winter 2013, beating NIP in the final. They then lost to NIP in the grand final of the third CSGO major, ESL 1 Cologne 2014, and responded next year by winning ESL 1 Katowice 2015, a rematch versus NIP, and winning ESL 1 Cologne 2015 versus a strong-looking Envy roster who ended up winning the very next major, Cluj-Napoca, later on in the year. By August 2015, Fnatic had won 3 out of 6 CSGO majors and were an icon to every young CS player growing up. So why were Fnatic so dominant at the start of CSGO? Firstly, they just didn't really make any roster changes. After winning the DreamHack Winter 2013 major, they didn't make any changes till June the next year, that being Schneider getting kicked, Devilwalk moving to being their coach, and signing Crims and Olofmeister. During this time, you had the tactical leadership from Pronax, an explosive AWPer in JW, and insanely strong riflers in Flusher, Olofmeister, and Crims. It's not until 2016 where things at Fnatic started changing drastically. Olofmeister was having some wrist issues, and the likes of Pleasant and even Wenton came into the team to try and help Fnatic out. Olofmeister came back in June, and then just 2 months later, the roster exploded. Everyone who watched CS back then will remember this move. It wasn't the French shuffle, but the Swedish shuffle between Fnatic and Godsent. Fnatic somehow managed to make the semi-finals at the E-League Atlanta Major in 2017, and that lineup was crazy. Olofmeister, Crims, Dennis, Twist, and Disco Doppelin. Fnatic didn't even have an AWPer. I remember watching Twist and Olofmeister both pick up the AWP during that major. By 2017, even though the core of Crims, JW, and Flusher continued, the team was starting to look more and more different as time went on. I remember being particularly excited around the lineup that had Fnatic's rookie in-game leader Golden that played on their academy team in 2016 and 2017, and Lekro that had previously played on Fnatic and Godsent. By the end of 2017, Fnatic placed top 4 at ESL Pro League Season 6 Finals and ECS Season 4 Finals, and moved into 2018 with making the quarterfinals of the E-League Boston Major, winning IM Katowice and WESG, while also placing top 4 at DreamHack Masters Marseille, getting knocked out by the best team in the world in Astralis. My last memory of a true threatening Fnatic roster has to be the one that was in late 2019. That was Crims, JW, Brolin, Flusher, and Golden. For a good few months, this team was winning titles and consistently going deep in every LAN event they played. So what caused the downfall of Fnatic? The online COVID era? It's certainly a decent excuse to make. This Swedish project is built to perform on LAN, built to deliver against the pressure of playing on stage in packed out arenas. What edge do they have playing online CS at home and against a lot more tier 2 competition? 2020 was an average year for Fnatic. They won ESL Pro League Season 11 online and placed 3rd at Flashpoint Season 2. And that's about it. To combat the poor results in 2020, Fnatic changed tack moving into 2021. An opportunity to shake things up. It's just all of the moves were slightly confusing. Flusher is benched and Fnatic bring in rookie AWPer Giacchino, who's been playing in the tier 3 scene. The only reason I know of Giacchino is because he played briefly in the UK scene, alongside guys like Mezzi and Adam9130. The issue with this move is that Giacchino was brought in and not to AWP. JW was still on the team at the time, and he was the main AWPer. So why on earth would Fnatic think that Giacchino would be a good option? I have no idea. By July 2021, Golden and JW were benched, and it was time for a Swedish rebuild. At least, that is what you would expect. Instead, Fnatic announced that they are switching to an international lineup and signed 2 British players and 1 British coach, in Alex, Mezzi, and Kita. In my opinion, the first real downfall for Fnatic was when they attempted to create an international project rather than picking up local Swedish talent and creating a pipeline to develop them for the future of Tier 1. It's easy to say that no one was given adequate time to prove themselves on this international lineup. Giacchino was benched just after 2 months of the project, and it started to become a quick rotating door of players entering and leaving. Fnatic even sold their strongest piece in Brolin to NIP the following year. In 2021, Fnatic won just 2 events. DreamHack opened November and Repub League Season 2. Yeah, congrats guys, that's back-to-back Tier 2 events. From 2021 to 2023, Fnatic had some really average and underwhelming signings, like Smuya, Regali, Poison, Pepzor, Fasha, Afro, Dexter, even QB. Like seriously, this entire section of Fnatic's history can only be explained with average performances and frequent roster changes. If I'm going to give Fnatic any credit during this turbulent period, I would say fair play on picking up Matties from Sampi. That really was an incredible signing. Perhaps their only good signing since trying to add Alex and Mezzi. By mid-2024, Fnatic finally put their foot down and made a mega signing. They picked up a true Tier 1 player, and it's BlameF from Astralis. On paper, you've eventually got to a core to get excited about if you're Fnatic. You've got an experienced veteran anchor in Crims, an explosive aggressive rifler in Matties, and a strong Tier 1 star rifler in BlameF. The issue is, why is this being made in May of 2024, and not way back in 2021 or 2022? For the last few years, Fnatic were playing it safe with signings, mostly signing cheap players which didn't pay off at all. I'm now going to talk about Fnatic's strategic and analytics lead, or whatever bullshit title that is for Rossar. Rossar's name has probably flown under the radar, but if you followed the Tier 2 scene around 2020 and 2021, you'll know of Endpoint, and Rossar was the head coach there. Rossar is known in the local scene as a mastermind for scouting talent. During his time working alongside Mighty Max, Rossar brought in the following players to Endpoint. Flames, now on Vitality. Mezzi, now also on Vitality. Boris, who had the chance of course on Falcons. And Nertz, who's now on Liquid. So who takes responsibility here? There's no way that you're telling me that Rossar had this eye for talent, but yet couldn't get any upcoming talents on Fnatic. So you can assume the role of management of Fnatic were not investing enough, or didn't give Rossar the keys to create something really special. The final straw for Fnatic had to be the Perfect World Shanghai Major, which was held in December last year. While Fnatic qualified via the EU RMR, they placed last at the Major, losing to Stanislaus wildcard, Boomich's Cloud9, and somehow the Chinese squad in Rare Atom. These results are completely unacceptable and embarrassing. More changes were going to be needed. There was one silver lining for Fnatic, and that was getting familiar with Passion UA and their incredible run through the EU RMR and the Major itself. Passion UA had never played at a Tier 1 level, but they proved that they've got something special behind them. In January this year, Fnatic made the move to bench their in-game leader, Embody, and their AWPer in Norg. They announced that they are picking up Fear, the in-game leader from Passion UA. When I saw this move, I thought, alright, here we go. Fnatic is starting to cook. They've got Fear, and they've got Jambo from Passion UA. Until I realised they hadn't. Instead, they picked up a very average Burmalov from Mal's NXT to be their AWPer. After a few months of average Burmalov performances and poor tournament results, Fnatic decided to bench Burmalov and sign Jambo from Passion UA. But let's be honest here, it's a great move, but why didn't it happen in January? Why has Fnatic waited 70 days to make this decision? It's back to pointing fingers at management, and it was so obvious to everyone that Fnatic should have picked up Fear and Jambo at the same time, and it just didn't happen. What's made Fnatic average in 2025 has to be the timing of their moves. Matties and BlameF must be so hungry to play on LAN and in the Tier 1 circuit, and instead, it feels like they're nowhere near that conversation. Why? Let's take a look on their run in the most important tournament of the year, the MRQ. Fnatic on paper had a really good draw in their opening match. They had to go up against BC Game. Their opponents had made a lot of roster changes in 2025, and their results were fairly average online. The only potential issue that Fnatic would have to deal with is Norg. The Swedish AWPer previously played on Fnatic from September 2024 to January 2025, alongside Crims, Matties, and BlameF. Fnatic got absolutely farmed 2-13 versus BC Game on Ancient in the best of 1. Fnatic star rifler BlameF posted just 4 kills, and Norg on the other hand went 22-5, and he didn't even get a single kill with the AWP. Fnatic needed to bounce back with a good victory in the next game. This time, the draw was much tougher for Fnatic. They had to play Gamer Legion on Anubis. Individually, BlameF and Matties played really well, both posting 22 kills each, and even managed a 9-3 CT half, which is unheard of on Anubis. Fnatic closed out the match comfortably. Fnatic end day 1 of the EU MRQ 1-1 in the Swiss. Now they have to wait until tomorrow for the next game. Fnatic get drawn against BetBoom on day 2. It's a competitive back and forth game on Mirage. Fnatic were 9-12 down and managed to put the game into overtime. Jambo ended the game top fragging the server with 31 kills and just 20 deaths. The main issue is that Fnatic lost in overtime 13-16. Fnatic cannot afford to lose another game. They need to go undefeated from here if they want to qualify for the major. Fnatic's opponent on day 3 of the event is ENCE, and finally in a best of 3. ENCE might have 4-time major winner in Glaive calling for them, but their lineup on paper is weak. They've been struggling in tier 2, and you can say that they don't have a proper star player. There is just a lot of young role players on ENCE. Fnatic should be able to beat ENCE fairly easily. Instead, their map pick of Mirage is a disaster, losing 6-13. Fear, Borup and Jambo all post single-digit frag counts on map 1. It's time for redemption on map 2. Fnatic were 12-8 up on their CT side of Ancient and just managed to close the map out 13-11. Really, ENCE should have closed the series 2-0 by this point. The final map is Anubis, and at least with Fnatic, they've already played this map in the event. They had a cracking CT side versus Gamer Legion. The problem is, that didn't happen again. They ended up being 2-10 down at the half and were farmed with the final scoreline reading 4-13. They couldn't even hold weight, couldn't even give a fight to ENCE. So what went wrong? Well, it's easy to point fingers at the whole Borup standing in for Crim situation. Borup individually didn't play great, but I don't think this is all on him. BlameF finished the event posting a 0.93 rating and Jambo posting a 0.95 rating. Matties was the only player on Fnatic who was performing consistently. Was it the pressure on a young rookie in-game leader? Fundamentally, Fnatic looked poor at the MRQ. I'm not sold on Fear as an in-game leader for Fnatic. This is a guy that has only previously worked with local Ukrainian talent, meaning that he's never worked on an international professional team. Fnatic had the second worst CT side round win percentage in the event at just 40. They were also second worst in round win percentage in 4v5 situations on their CT side at just 59%. Heroic, OG and Bait were all around 78 to 80%. Fnatic also had the 4th worst percentage of teammates' deaths that were traded on their T side. These stats tell you that fundamentally they weren't playing well off of each other, not on the same page. That is DEFCON 5 for this to happen in such an important tournament. History was created at the Blast MRQ. New teams such as Metasport, Nemega, BetBoom and Bait all qualified for their first ever Counter-Strike major. Yet at the same time, legendary organisations with much more funding haven't even got close. And when organisations fail to perform for so long as Fnatic, it starts to dilute their legacy. It makes one think, was their success just a fluke? Was it one with a lucky roster that the organisation will never repeat? When was the last time Fnatic made the semi-finals of a major? A few years ago maybe? No, that would be over 8 years ago. Fnatic were a juggernaut, and now they're only a shadow of their former selves. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave your thoughts about Fnatic in the comments below, and consider subscribing. I'll see you in the next video.